Hi, I'm Renee, the career coach, and I have been working in the HR industry for several years as a recruiter. And now I'm sharing behind the scenes with you so you know exactly what hiring managers and recruiters are looking for so I can help you get hired. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 reasons why you have been ghosted by an employer and you're not hearing back after you've already been through an interview or two. So stick around. Now, to kind of clarify what that term ghosted means, we're going to be talking specifically about if you have had an interview with a recruiter, maybe even multiple interviews, and you've spoken with the hiring manager, and then all of a sudden it seems like they fall off the face of the earth and you're not hearing anything back and you're wondering, am I still in consideration? Have they hired somebody? What is going on? Now, if you're in the situation where you have applied for a position and you haven't heard anything back, that is a different situation, and I do have a video linked in the description below on why you haven't heard back after submitting your application. So check that video out. Now, how long should you be waiting after this interview to hear back from the recruiter or the hiring manager? And honestly, it's anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a little bit sooner, sometimes it can even be later than that. But after your interview, you should be asking, when should I expect to hear back from you? And this will give you an idea as to when you should be following up. But if you have followed up at this point and you're still not hearing anything back, here are 5 reasons why. Reason number 1 why you're probably not hearing back is that the recruiter has a high workload. Typically, a recruiter on a good day will have anywhere from 15 to 25 requisitions, and this is a normal load. In some situations, though, recruiters are put on overload and they're given anywhere from 40 to 50, sometimes 60 requisitions. And in cases like this where they're just overworked, it's so hard to stay on top of all of the different candidates and where they're at in progress, especially if a recruiter is not well organized. And that's why it's so important to follow up with recruiters to kind of keep you at the top of mind and you don't fall to the bottom of the stack and become forgotten. Number 2, they've hired somebody else for this role and the recruiter has forgotten to get back to you. Sometimes these situations, the recruiter is so far involved in all their other requisitions that they get a notification from the manager that they want to move forward with John Doe. So therefore they let John Doe know and they're really excited and they're involved in this candidate that's going to be hired, and they forget about all the other candidates that were also interviewing for this role, and they forget to disposition them, they forget to send out the rejection email, and you're left hanging. Reason number 3, the position was placed on hold. In this case, due to either budget or they're moving in a different direction or just different changes within the organization, they have to place the position on hold, which basically means that they're not actively looking for candidates to fill this role. However, sometimes the hiring manager will still want to keep the candidates active and not close them out, not disposition the candidates because, hey, they may open this position in a week or 2 or next month, and they don't want to get rid of the candidates, but at the same time, they're not ready to make a hire. So in this situation, it can be very frustrating for a candidate because you're not knowing what's going on and you're not hearing anything. In my personal opinion as the recruiter, I always try and let candidates know as soon as this situation comes up where a position is put on hold, just so that they know what's going on and they're not left in the dark. Along these same lines as a position being placed on hold is number 4, which is the position was either canceled or it was filled internally. Sometimes in recruiting, changes come up and either there's budget changes or they decide to move ahead with an internal, but for one reason or another, they are no longer looking for external candidates. And in these situations, they're making these changes while they have candidates mid-progress. Like I said, like you've had an interview, you've talked to several people in the company, and then all of a sudden, you're not hearing anything. And a lot of the times it's because of this. They've canceled the position or they hired somebody internally. So again, as the recruiter, they should be showing up and telling you, hey, we went ahead and canceled this role, or we hired somebody internally. But instead, a lot of the times you're left in the dark. And number 5, which is the hiring manager is taking forever to make a decision. Sometimes a hiring manager can either be indecisive about different candidates that they're viewing, or they just take forever in making a decision. And in these cases, it can cause you to feel like you're being ghosted because you're not hearing anything back. A hiring manager can be very indecisive, and they'll view a few candidates and then they'll decide that they want to see another slate of candidates, and maybe even another slate of candidates. And as a recruiter, I have to put my foot down and say, you've seen all these candidates, and if you're not ready to make a decision with one of these, then I don't think you're ready to make a hire. If you're in that first wave of candidates that was first submitted to the manager, and they're wanting to see additional candidates 3 or 4 slates in, then yeah, you're not hearing anything back for quite a while, and that can be very upsetting. I've also been in the situation where I'll have a manager that will ghost me and I won't hear anything back from the manager. And in those situations, I don't have any updates for the candidates other than to tell them I'm still waiting for feedback from the manager. These situations can be very difficult because you've got the hiring manager, which is kind of the bottleneck to all of this, and he's holding up all of the feedback. And at some point, you're sitting there as the candidate thinking, I haven't heard anything back. They've probably moved on. They've probably hired somebody else. When in all reality, you're still in the running. Now, there may be even additional reasons as to why a candidate is ghosted in the process. But as a recruiter, these are the main ones that I have seen. And again, it boils down to a poor candidate experience and that not being an emphasis within the company. Now, there are a lot of companies out there that will focus on candidate experience, and they have the means, they have the budget to really invest in a good recruiting process and good recruiters that will be able to manage a lot of requisitions, make sure the candidates don't fall through the cracks. So kudos to those companies that are out there. I wouldn't necessarily go running in the other direction and say that, oh, I don't want to work for any company that has a poor candidate experience. I mean, yeah, it does kind of stink as a candidate, and you do kind of feel like you're not valued. But I will say this, if you are one of the top candidates, you're gonna feel valued throughout the whole candidate experience. And if you feel like you're going through this recruiting process, continually getting interviews, and then you feel like you're getting ghosted, then one of the best things that you can do is make sure you are a top candidate. Make sure you have a strong resume. Make sure that your interviews are killing it. And then these companies are going to be more likely to treat you with that white glove experience because they don't want to lose you as a candidate. Now, one of the other things that you can do to make sure that you're not getting ghosted is follow up after these interviews. Now, of course, if a recruiter is going to ghost you, they'll just ghost you and there's not much you can do about that. But if you are following up with the recruiters and having that communication, then if any of these situations do arise where the position was placed on hold or the requisition was canceled or they hired somebody internally, then that recruiter is going to have that connection with you and have that communication already established, and they'll let you know what's going on in the process so that you don't feel like you've fallen off the face of the earth. So these are 5 reasons as to why you might be ghosted in the interview process. And as unfortunate and frustrating as it is, hopefully this gives you a little bit more clarity. If you want to be a standout candidate, then make sure to check out my resume and my interview checklists, which are linked in the description below. If you like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe because I'm posting new content every week. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in my next video.